Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna wait a few moments here, let everybody filter in. We're gonna get started pretty soon. Thanks to you all for coming, spending your evening or early morning here with us. Seeing some familiar names in the chat. I know I've chatted with a few of you all for sure. All right, we seem to be hitting a critical mass here, so I'm going to go ahead and get things started. My name is John Ivey. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Masters Admissions Office, and I am proud to welcome you to this event. It's the fourth event of the Tepper Talk series, and this one is featuring the awesome Accelerate Leadership Center. And we got Leanne Meyer here with us and Zach Talmadge, and I will allow them to introduce themselves in a moment here, but just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and especially thank you all to those of you who've been attending multiple of this event series. I know that we've had some great content in previous events, and we will have some form of recording into the future. No timetable on when that's going to be, but it'll probably be available widely on the website. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Leanne.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And I'm just excited. We saw one of the participants already communicate to us that they're signing in from Lagos, Nigeria. And it's, I think, was it 1 o'clock in the morning, Zach? I'm not sure. I'm from South Africa, and so I know not to call my family right now. So we know Africa's sleeping. So thank you for staying awake. We have someone from Michigan. Welcome, welcome. We're very excited to meet you this evening. As John said, my name is Leanne Meyer. I run the Accelerate Leadership Center here at the Tepper School. And I have an alum who was a past student, Zach Talmadge, with me this evening, because I am going to be talking about how fabulous I think our center is. And Zach can tell you the truth. He was a student, he's worked with us, and he can tell you how he chose to work with the center. So I will be letting Zach introduce himself shortly, but I just wanted to welcome Zach and thank him very much. Like everyone here, he's had a full day and he's choosing to join the conversation this evening. So thank you very much, Zach. Thanks, John. And I'm very excited to meet all the attendees. And please, you've already got it down, I suppose, by the fourth one. Please keep posting Q&A. We look forward to answering any questions you have. I think that will make for rich conversation. And there was an attendee who had a hand up already, but it went down fast. So please put your questions in the Q&A and we will answer them. So in a nutshell, I'm not going to give a lengthy PowerPoint. I know everyone is truly Zoom fatigued at the moment. And so what I do want to share with our center, we're the Accelerate Leadership Center, and we're a reasonably new center on campus. We've been around, I think it's for almost 9 years now, which is baby years in academic environments. And we were established based on feedback from our alumni, based on feedback from people like Zach, who came to the school and said, they had invested a great deal of money in their MBA program, and they felt that they landed the jobs they wanted to land. And you've met my colleague, Steve Ruckus, and our Career Services Center, the Master's Career Center. We have this wonderful team that helps you find the role that you want to find post-MBA. But what the students said is they felt they were not accelerating as fast as they wanted to in their first promotion post-MBA. And so they were saying that's not a great return on the money they've invested. And so our internal faculty spent a great deal of time looking at what would help that acceleration. And basically what they felt it came down to were focusing on leadership skills, focusing on interpersonal skills, and focusing on communication skills. And hence our center was born based on this curriculum review. And how we work is that while you are busy with your traditional curriculum through the MBA program, we come alongside you, and you have to meet certain requirements of working with our center, and I'll tell you what those are now. But the idea is that you are, if you're a full-time student, you are while you're on campus, working through developing your leadership skills, communication skills, and interpersonal skills. And while you're a part-time student, you're working with our team to be far more successful in your current role at the moment. And so everyone on my team comes from industry. We're not academics, we're executive coaches that have come from industry, but we're embedded at the university, which is great. So we're not contract coaches, we are here with you on campus. And in fact, if any of you have come to visit, we sit in the middle of the MBA student lounge. So like we are your neighbors. You knock on my office door when you get lost during beers on a Friday night. So this is where we're based. We're there with the students. We walk with you, we coach you, we support you in what your leadership aspirations are. So that's what our center does. And how that works is before you even join before you get on campus, when you've been accepted as a student over the summer before you start, we send you an assessment called the EQI 2.0. Many of you, yeah, exactly, Ruth. It's a very strategic location. By Friday night, we're ready for that beer as well. So thank you. But what we do is we send you an EQI 2.0 assessment. This is an online assessment that measures your emotional intelligence on 5 different dimensions. So you take the assessment before you even arrive on campus, and then you get the results before you arrive. You come to campus, and in those very first few weeks, when you're doing our base camp and our orientation, you experience a debrief of your results. And we've gone in different directions with this over the last few years. We've done it one-on-one with our leadership coaches in some years. During the pandemic, we felt students really wanted to build community. And so we did small group debriefs of these EQ assessments. Regardless, you will have one-on-one time to really work through what your EQ assessment is telling you about your skills, your emotional intelligence skills, which all have to do with interpersonal skills. And we chose the specific assessment because of its strong links to leadership effectiveness. So the higher your behaviors are with regards to emotional intelligence, the more successful you're going to be as a leader. And so you have the debrief. So those are 2 requirements to graduate with your MBA. The third requirement is you need to attend 3 out of 5 workshops dealing with different aspects of the EQ wheel. And so every Friday morning on campus, we offer workshops around emotional intelligence, and they include things like imposter syndrome, they include things like assertiveness, they include things like how to sort of use your emotions in service to better decision making. We have a number of workshops on empathy. So that's the requirement of working with our center. So you get your EQ assessment, you get debriefed, and you have access to workshops that run every Friday for your full period here if you're a full-time student. If you're considering being a part-time student, we show up in every single one of your on-campus access weekends, and we teach these same workshops in an access weekend format. So for example, this week we'll have both in-person for our access weekend students and online for students who couldn't be here. So every Friday, lots of education. So at a minimum, that's how students choose to engage with our center and are required to engage. Above and beyond that, we offer workshop programming on a number of skills that we feel consistently come up as questions from students. Students want to work on things like how to have difficult conversations, how to delegate effectively, how to have empathy for someone who you think is a jerk, things like that. So we have a number of programs that address the diverse skill sets that you need to be successful in your roles. So we offer those every Friday, again, for our full-time students. And in every single access weekend, we have workshops like this as well. So for example, this weekend in our access weekend, we will be teaching building networks of influence. That will be one of the workshops. We'll be offering. Another workshop is how to have influence without authority. So that'll give you a taste of the types of workshops that we offer during your time with us. Those are opt-in. You choose the ones that are going to be most helpful to you at a time that you need them. So we offer that. But I personally think, and I'll be curious what Zach has to say, is that I I think the biggest value of our center is that we offer one-on-one coaching for all our students. And I think many people who sign up for an MBA don't realize that basically you get it free. And sorry, I'm being crass in the way I'm talking, but you basically get a free executive coach for the whole time that you're with us. You choose the coaches that you want to work with. You work one-on-one with them. And if you're a full-time student, we tend to work on behaviors that you may be struggling with while on campus. Some of you will choose to be club leaders. It is not easy leading groups who are your peers. Some of you will already struggle with the teams that you'll be working on around capstone projects, and you'll come and work with us on how to better influence these groups. For those of you who are part-time, you bring your direct work challenges to us as they occur. So if you're having a problem on your team, you have an executive coach who can support you. If you are not sure how to think about negotiating for something, we can support you. And so the one-on-one coaching, leadership coaching, to me is one of the richest experiences for many of our students. And I find many students, when they're signing up to do the MBA, don't understand that that's what they get as part of their MBA experience. And Zach will tell you now is that we keep in great contact with our alums. And as you are an alum of our program and you bump into challenges, you certainly are going to be phoning us to help you. And we are very excited to be doing that. I see Eliana saying, what is your favorite workshop to run? So there's one I love to run and there's one I love to observe. And I suppose I really like to work on networks, because I think when in our workshop, we actually audit your network. So you look at what your network looks like and we do an audit of your network. And it's fascinating when people start seeing that, oh, wow, my network is about my past, not about my future. Or you look at your network and you realize, no, they're all birds of the same feather. I really need to build something different. And so I love that, because I feel it's very tactical. And we know that to be successful in your roles now, you're a really great, probably star performer. But to be successful later in your career, you're going to need very strong networks of influence. And so I suppose I like that because it feels very practical to me, and you get great value from it. The workshop I love to observe is in the last 2 years, we've been experimenting by bringing in the arts and interdisciplinary programs from across campus into our leadership development program. And one of the workshops we run is called So You Think You Can Conduct a Band. And what we do is we actually bring an orchestra in from across campus, and you get to conduct this orchestra. So the normal conductor comes along and you all get a baton, and he talks about how you make music happen. And so you stand in front of a full orchestra and you bring in different musicians and you tell them to be quiet and you tell them when they've got to build to a dramatic climax. And I think what's interesting for me, whenever I see our students after that session, we have, you can imagine, you're all smart here. We have very heady, bright students. And after that session, they'll like kind of shake their shoulders and they go like, I feel different in my body. And that may sound silly, but I think for many people, it's the first time they have felt what it feels like to embody leadership, if that makes sense. So it's this feeling of, wow, this is leading. I'm conducting and I'm leading, and I know what that feels like. So thank you very much. That was a great question. Another question I have here, which is wonderful. It's, do we administer personality behavior tests to evaluate candidates? And the question is not at all. We don't, and John can speak more to this from an admissions perspective. John and his team look at your resumes, they look at your essays, they look at your history. That's what they're looking at. We do not use behavioral assessments to look at our candidates. And what to us is very important, when you take that EQ assessment, no one on campus has access to that. Your recruiters don't see it, no academics see it. We want this to be developmental. And I feel my worry is if people feel they're being assessed and it's going to be punitive, people try and game the assessment instead of seeing it as developmental. So I thank you. That's a terrific question, because we really don't do that at all. And that assessment is really, the person you're going to share it is with the coach, and it's a coach that you choose to go and see. So that's how the assessment will work. And even when I say we do group debriefs, no one is ever asked to disclose their scores. We talk about what the scores are showing and what you're learning from it, but we don't disclose scores. So, but thank you very much for that question. So that's our leadership coaching. And then the last area that I do want to talk about before I let Zach talk about his experience of working with the center is we also have communication coaches, and communication coaches are second-year MBA students who are really strong at communication, and they competitively apply to become a communication coach in our center. They go through a selection process. We select 20. We train them on what it is to be a coach and to be a communication coach. And then we pay them to be coaches in our center. And they work with students on communication issues. And by communication, what our students use our communication coaches for is that they use them for their pitch stories when they interview, to practice, like to role model and practice for interviews, to answer those dreaded questions of, tell me a bit about yourself. They work with our students on what it is to present their capstone projects, what it is to present in class. And the reason we've chosen second year students for that, we feel they're much closer to industry in this regard than we are. We're not applying for jobs. Our students are applying for jobs. They're seeking to perform well in different pitch competitions. They want to do well in class. And so these students work with you on those types of issues. And personally, what's disappointing to me, we track our student experience very seriously. It's a measure of success of our units. And so every year I look at our student experience and see where does my center rate in relation to its impact on student experience. And we do well, but the experience the students love more than anything is working with our communication coaches. And so that is a very valued part of the MBA. And so I can't see any open questions right now, but in a nutshell, we are here to make sure you are successful really post your MBA. But what is wonderful is if you see your MBA as a time to really practice skills that maybe you normally would not have, to stretch yourself into behaviors you wouldn't, and then to be held accountable by our coaches in doing that. So see this as a time to work on these skills, but with the goal of really accelerating your career trajectory post MBA. And we do that through a number of workshops. We do it through one-on-one coaching with our coaches, and then we bring in interdisciplinary partners from across campus, like the conducting. And so I'm going to, this is great. So one of the questions here from Ken Huang, thank you, was what measures do you use to track the progress of a student's progress in behavioral skills? So Ken, what we actually do is we do that, the EQI 2.0 assessment that I mentioned, we administer it at the beginning of your experience. And then after 2 years of working with us for full-time and 3 years for part-time, we assess again and you get the results. So you see the difference in trajectory of where you've grown and where you've not grown. And what we do is we just get global scores to see which programs are having the most impact on certain dimensions. So thank you. It's a great question. Yeah. So, and I see people are connecting with one another, so that's great. So I'm going to stop talking. I will keep looking at, so Mitchie, we have not, so a question from Mitchie is, do we follow up after graduation? And I'm assuming that means, do we assess again? I think we have actually not done that. So that's a great question. We have not been around for very long. So we don't have lots of alum coming through. And the EQ assessment we introduced, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. So we don't have many students in the world. What I would love to assess though is, and we don't know how to do this, is really track how many students hit that first promotion sooner than they thought and attributed their success to work with our center. That's what I would love to work at. And we're not sure that's a hard question to answer, because it's how do we isolate for our impact? But great question. We have not tracked 2 years after graduation and 2 years in workplaces. So that's something we should be thinking about. So I thank you very much for that. But without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Zach Talmadge, and we will certainly keep answering your questions. So please keep them coming. Zach he doesn't know this, but he was my favorite student, and I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I had just joined, I'd worked in a different part of the school, and I had joined Accelerate the year Zach was our GBA president. And so it was to watch a young man be a president of a group that he had no power over. And so to move this group in a direction during a very challenging time in this country when he was the GBA president, it was a sort of time marked by elections and turmoil. And so it was my pleasure to watch him and to watch him grow as a leader. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to ask Zach to introduce himself, to talk about what he's doing now, to talk about how he worked with our center, and then I will keep, we'll let the Q&A go, and then we'll answer some of those questions. So Zach, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Leanne. That's very humbling. I appreciate it. But so anyways, my name is Zach Talmadge. I started at Tepper in the full-time MBA program in August of 2015, graduated in May of 2017. Leanne gave reference to an acronym, GBA, that stand for Graduate Business Association. So I was the Graduate Business Association president from essentially halfway through our first year to halfway through our second year. Then we transitioned to the new folks. I started with Microsoft in a sales program, or I was as one of their salespeople in June of 2017, and have been there for now over 4 years, all working with healthcare and life sciences customers. I spent a lot of time at the Accelerate Leadership Center. I had also kind of approached it pretty skeptically at the beginning, just because I thought I was somebody who was a great communicator. I had career success and life success up to that time, and I thought, well, what else do I need? And little did I know, right, talk about arrogance and lacking humility, and there's a lot more that I needed. And that's exactly why I'm here tonight. Is I actually, a couple months ago, I went back to Pittsburgh to present to the full-time class that was coming in their orientation they call base camp. I'm here tonight, after a day of work like the rest of you are, or maybe it's 1 a.m. in Nigeria, because I'm passionate about it. And I over the past, certainly when I was in school, and honestly, this is just 100% honest, like every week I have some sort of situation, either personally or professionally, where I think back to something that I worked with a leadership coach on. I was one of the communication coaches, and I think too that was a cool opportunity for me to support my classmates and get to know them better. And also it helped me as well in doing that as well. So I got a lot out of the program. I got a lot out of my time at Tepper. And I think to Leanne's point, we'll continue to monitor the Q&A. There was one question Ruth had shared about, in addition to leadership and emotional intelligence, that I kind of wanted to start. Do you cover skills like building trust in teams and turnaround? And I think the short answer is yes. One of Leanne's peers, who I was also very close with, Laura Maxwell, Laura asked me early on how I like to be challenged on a scale of 1 to 10. And I told her, give me a 10, right? I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to get better. And she just said to me, you talk too much. She just said, you talk too much and you don't listen as much as you should. And I was like, okay, well, whatever, right? Immediately she was wrong and I was right. And she challenged me because for at least part of my goal of being the student government president was really connecting and empowering and being able to delegate responsibilities and building trust within the other 8 people that served on the board, the student government. So every 2 weeks I would have a one-on-one with them. And Laura challenged me to say, listen 80% of the time and talk 20% of the time. And for a guy like me, that is just not a thing that I would have been able to do. So, it challenged me to go out of my comfort zone. It challenged me to improve my communication skills in really subtle ways, even simple things like asking an open-ended question as compared to a binary question. And I will say what I found was I got to know my classmates better. I think we built more trust individually. We built more trust as a team, but so many of these conversations started, how's everything going planning for the Halloween party, or how's everything going marketing this thing, or how's everything going with the alumni event that's upcoming. And then it turned into talking about their personal lives, talking about things that were going on at school. And like, again, these 30-minute biweekly one-on-ones often turned into like an hour and a half coffees. And just, I really got to know the people that I was going to school with, and like some of which I literally just saw at a wedding this past weekend. And it was really, really nice, I think, for me to, when I was at school, to have built and established that relationship with them. But again, for a guy like me who's really wasn't as effective as a listener, I was really empowered, I think, to listen more and like actively listen. You know, one tidbit that I think of all the time: if you're thinking of your response when somebody's talking, you're not listening. Right. And that is like, it seems so basic. It seems so basic and obvious. And yet it was something that I wasn't really practicing, and it was brought to my attention, and it was just a good learning experience.
Zach, thank you. And I'm not modeling great behavior because I'm interrupting you now. But, I think to the point about trust in teams, it's a great question, because teaming, how to work with difficult people, consistently comes up as a topic that we work with as a sense. And I'm grateful for Zach sharing his example. So we'll work one-on-one with you. It's like, well, these are the behaviors you could be modifying. But at the same time, we take our students through a team contracting process. So it's a tool. We tell you and show you the data that shows if you do an effective team contract, a lot of the trust will be established, and we give you the tool of what a team contract looks like. And for our student groups, if you're running student groups, what we'll often do is we'll come and observe you facilitating a team contract with the team you're busy leading, and give both you and the team feedback. So, it would give you a sense of you getting your individual feedback, but you're getting a tool, and then you're getting a tool that you can take to work as well. So thank you very much for that. Zach, should we answer some questions, or do you have some more things you'd like to say about? Okay.
I think Q&A is great.
Okay, so one of the questions, and I can't see it now, but one of the questions was around, is this available to everyone? And please, absolutely, all of this is available to everyone. We are not interested in creating a competitive leadership program. We think these skills are vitally important for you to be successful. So we want everyone to have them. So please know that these are truly open to everyone. There's a question here about, are there group programs to interact about different leadership styles, what you've learned, seen, struggle with, to get more of a broad perspective from other avenues. So Wesley, there are two workshops that immediately come to mind. And the first is, we do the DISC assessment. I don't know how many of you know that. It measures you. Again, it's another assessment. This is not required. You opt in, and it measures you on what your dominance looks like, DISC, your dominance, your influence, your sort of stability and conscientiousness. And so you start learning what your style is and what other people's, like you're meeting Zach, and already his influence is going to be really high, his dominance is high, and if you're not that person, like on our team, we have people who are strong S and Cs. And so you talk about what the impact is of that in terms of working in groups. So we do DISC. The other assessment we do is actually on different leadership styles. We do situational leadership. So we absolutely cover styles. So thank you very much for that question. With Mitchie, and I'm going to maybe throw this to Zach as well. Mitchie's asking, what initiatives have you seen students come up with as a result of the center? And so the top of mind ones for me are students worked with us. So for full-time students who want to create learning opportunities for themselves to grow into while they're on campus, when there was a group of women who came to us and said they want to run the annual Tepper Women in Business Conference, well, create one and run it. And this is still running 8 years later. It's an unbelievably strong conference. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. You could join. In the last 2 years, we ran an entrepreneurship conference where we sort of offered this to people in our region. So those are just two top of mind. Zach, I'm not sure if they're other ones that you can, they're lots. So those are my ones just because they're big and dramatic. But are there other initiatives you're aware of?
No, I'm glad you brought up the Women in Business conference. I mean, that was featured in the Pittsburgh newspapers. There were a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
Pittsburgh women participants. Like it was great, and like men were invited as well. And I felt great volunteering and participating. I learned a lot and felt more connected, I think, with my classmates and with a
yeah,
community that I wasn't really a part of.
yeah.
I think for me, initiatives. I didn't see a ton of initiatives outside of that, but I did see a lot of what I would describe as growth.
Yeah.
And what the example that I give is the woman that was the vice president. Her name was Karen. Whenever she and I were on the student government together, when Karen gave her leadership presentation for her certification at the end of our program, I remember her describing that she was out in the Bay Area for her internship with Google with some of our classmates, and they were all going on a hike. A couple of the people were having a little bit of challenges with the hike. And I actually sat there and I cried as I saw it, because I just felt like I watched this person grow before my eyes, where Karen is the type of leader who's like, like rah, rah, lead the troops type of thing. And she said, sometimes you have to be in the back of the pack to make sure everybody moves ahead. And I don't think Karen came into Tepper with that perspective. I certainly didn't come into Tepper with that perspective.
Yeah.
And I have that perspective now. It doesn't mean that there aren't right times to be leading the pack. Sometimes that's necessary, but it did give me an appreciation for a different leadership style, one that I personally wasn't familiar with or had ever executed. I think that for me, I wouldn't describe it as an initiative, but I would describe it as growth.
Great, thank you. And Zach, there's another question here, and you could answer this. Eliana, I hope I'm saying it. I don't know if it's Eliana or Eliana, said, one of my biggest passions within my current job is the ability to mentor co-workers and interns. What other opportunities for mentorship are there at Tepper aside from communication coaching? So Eliana, the ones that for me come to mind is that second years, we identify specific second years to mentor first years. So if you're planning on coming full-time, yes, there's communication, but as a second year, you could have a role mentoring first years coming in. Our undergraduate population are always looking to our center to find and help them find mentors for undergraduate populations. So there are those opportunities. And then a lot of our clubs do pro bono work in our communities. And so there are lots of opportunities to mentor other organizations or people at a club level. So our sustainability club will work with certain nonprofit community organizations, and there are opportunities to mentor there. And then if you take any club leadership roles, you are mentoring the next generation that's coming through. And so, Zach, I'm not sure if you would add any other mentorship opportunities.
Yeah, I think those are some of the formal ones, but I think a lot of the mentoring happens in this program where like people don't realize they're mentoring, if that makes sense. It's just like, it's so subtle and nuanced. So I'll say it, I say it humbly but confidently, like interviewing is it's one of my strengths. I'm very, very good at it. But that doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it, right? That means I need to improve. And I got to a point in my second year where I was all in on wanting to work for Microsoft. And I was getting up to, and I remember so vividly this thought process of, well, I could probably do a 90% good enough job. And like, that'll get me through to the next round and all this other stuff. And, good enough. And I was scared of the feedback that I would get from my classmates. Again, these people that I viewed as like the upper echelon, like if you're looking at the creme de la creme of interviewers and people that work at these amazing companies now. And I remember asking them, Chip, Frank, Colleen, names that Leanne recognizes. And I thought to myself, like, I have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort right now. And I have to learn to get this feedback now, because I would rather it be now in this study room with one of my classmates where I can get that feedback. I can hone my skills. I can get better at it, as opposed to whenever Microsoft sends the letter that says, sorry, you didn't get the job. So I really had to like think about that big picture. And it was uncomfortable, but I think it required a lot of soul searching, literally or figuratively looking in the mirror and saying, what can I do to be better? So that was for me, I think, where I benefited a lot from, again, more informal mentoring. But one thing you'll see that's really fun is I didn't recruit for consulting, but a lot of people that come to these MBA programs do. The second mini is like right in the throes of recruiting and especially consulting case prep. So, people that are preparing for consulting are essentially taking their required 5 classes and, doing the work for all that. And then they're essentially taking another class of mentoring and practicing cases with one another, like hours and hours and hours of this preparation. So I think through that, some people are stronger at it. Some people maybe have a more analytical or consulting or mathematical background, and some people don't. But maybe the people on the other side of the spectrum are better at communication skills. And I think it's important to, transfer those skills. So it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, there are other mentoring opportunities. I think from my experience, a lot of them are more informal.
Great, thanks. Zach, there was another question here from Chandra. What are a few leadership exercises that you felt were vital for your role post-MBA?
Yeah. I mean, so if you see, just real quick too, if you see me looking above, it's just I have another monitor where I'm tracking the chat as well. I think for me, it was just like, again, for me, really, really learning about empathy. I was raised in a household that was, I don't want to say it was not empathetic, but it was driven by accountability. Like high performance was the expectation, not perfection, but you had to do your best and you had to generally do it well. And if it didn't go well, that's okay. And, you just dust yourself off and try to do better the next time. So I didn't really come into Tepper, I think, with like much of an empathetic bone, and really trying to embrace the idea of empathy. I think like, if anything, there are a lot of things the past 19 months have taught us. But if anything, it's taught us to just take a step back and be a little patient. And there's a song that Phil Collins sings. I think it's called Both Sides of the Story. And it's like, you always need to hear both sides of the story. And I think to me, I had an experience with a customer about 10 months ago. All of my customers at work are healthcare providers. So they are literally in the throes of the most challenging work experience that they've ever had, and knock on wood, hopefully will ever have. We were presenting to an IT team. The cybersecurity folks were getting absolutely blasted with attacks. They wanted to buy a Microsoft solution, and they wanted it tomorrow. And that's just not how it works. They didn't understand the contracting. They didn't understand how to go through paperwork and negotiate a price and all this other stuff. And like, I can't, I don't know that I've ever been spoken to like that in my life. And it was tough. So I had to remind myself, like, what I'm going through right now in this moment, these people they're literally worrying about bringing home coronavirus to their loved ones. They're staying up till 3 a.m. They're getting alerts at all hours of the day. I can take a little bit of a tongue lashing for, if these people are having a different experience than me. Now, that was an experience, and that's fine. And I got to be honest, I was beat after that. Like, I had a really hard time after that one. That benefited me. What are the outcomes? I think that's the important thing. Little did I know that my manager was on that call. I had no idea. I just didn't really remember. He said, hey, forward me some of your calls for the next few weeks. I want to listen and learn a little bit more about what's going on with your sales motions. He just so happened to join that call. And afterward, he called me and he was just like, I was blown away by how customer focused you were. I think most people would have kind of fought back or defended themselves. So I think you handled it really well. It came up in my review later in the year. 2 of the customers that were also on that call, who I'd worked more closely with, called me within the next hour and apologized on behalf of their teammate. And like literally yesterday, we just invoiced a deal with that customer. Previously, they had a 3-year agreement that was around $14 or $15 million. They signed a 5-year agreement worth $42 million. Now, it wasn't because of that one experience, but what I'll tell you is that after that experience, I will tell you that they trusted us a lot more, because they thought to myself, like, Microsoft is actually thinking about us. Like, they're not thinking about making themselves look good. They're not thinking about being defensive. Like, they're listening, they're learning, and they're trying to do what they can. So that's, I mean, that as a sales guy, like, that $42 million contract, that helps my commission for sure. But I think, the respect and the credibility that I gained with my manager, we all know that managers talk, right? Evaluations come up, people get different bonuses and all this other stuff. I know that my credibility and my social and political capital within Microsoft went up on our team, specifically because of that experience. So I really do believe, like, I don't think I would have handled that situation. I would have said, I wouldn't have handled it that way 5 years ago. I would have said, this isn't my problem. I don't need this. I'm trying to help you and I'm moving on. Yeah. But I think, again, I kind of just putting myself in the mindset of thinking about other people and what they're going through as well. Maybe you all do that a little bit better than I did, but it certainly wasn't a skill that I was practicing intentionally.
Yeah. Zach, thank you. And, I know one of the earlier question was how, what behaviors do we see shift the most? And, Zach's mentioning empathy, and it's a dimension of the EQ assessment that we measure. So we measure students' empathy, and it's the one score we absolutely see shift in a positive way over the period of an MBA. Linked to that, though, if we just listen to what Zach was talking about, the skills he learned, one of the questions here is around what are the theoretical classes that you could practically apply in leadership coaching exercises? And we have very strong OB faculty at the school, and they teach a whole course on managing people and teams. Zach mentioned his social capital. Now we do a really interesting elective on networks and social capital and influence and power. We do some really interesting, there's some really interesting OB programming on multi-group conflicts. So when different groups inside organizations are coming at things differently. So you'll see when you come out, our OB faculty have a number of curricular requirements that absolutely will support what you do. And then what's great, we have a lot of access to your curriculum. So you could come to us and go, I've just learned this in managing people and teams, and I really want to practice that. And we would work with you on that. And so there's certainly a question, I think, Udit, you asked about, do we do strategies for influencing culture and change and entrepreneurship? We do all of that. And linked to that is the question, I can't remember, it was somewhere here, but do we do that program with you, the CEO of your own company? And I'm assuming it's management game, I think. Zach, wouldn't you think? And we totally do that. It's one of the most loved. I don't know, did you do management game or not?
No, I did not.
Okay.
But I did hear from several of my classmates that, it's I don't really know, a challenging, right? Rewarding, challenging, because inevitably, someone on the leadership team goes down. It was pretty fun from what I gathered.
Yeah. No, thank you. Then Ken was asking about, do we offer multilingual or multicultural leadership training as well? Ken, we do, depending on student interest. And what we did last year, we actually brought in a really interesting assessment that measures you on 7 dimensions of culture. So you get an assessment, cultures can be divided up on these 7 dimensions, and then you can assess yourself, and then you can sort of learn from that. And so what to me was intriguing, I'm a South African, spending and working time in the States now, but my cultural profile came up as Swedish. So I'm more Swedish than South African or American. But what was great is those types of assessment give you huge insight into what could be your challenges in dealing in different cultural environments. What was interesting is we didn't run it during the pandemic. Our students were not seeing one another enough that we could learn from that. What happened though, so many of our students said they wanted to use it almost like a dating profile. So instead of worrying about cross-cultural, it was like, well, could they have this profile that other people could see, like a shorthand, kind of like, well, I'm the kind of person who thinks this about time, values this kind of community, is more isolated than communal. So anyway, but we do have those assessments, surely. So I'm answering that. Zach, there was a question about what do you wish you'd known going into Tepper that you know now?
Well, I learned it like 2 days into Tepper, but I remember I had always been able to get everything done. I just had I was raised in such a way that it was like high performance was an expectation. So I remember sitting in base camp, which is our orientation, on the first day in the front row, and the previous student government president and vice president were presenting, saying, look, you need to, if you don't know how to prioritize and manage time, you're going to learn here in the next 2 years. You're not going to be able to do everything you want. And I remember, slouching back in my chair in the auditorium thinking all right, well, whatever, because I've always been able to get everything done. And 4 days later, I had this list of 17 things, and I had to say to myself, all right, I can only get 11 of them done today, right? Which 11 are they? How important are they? And I will say, that has bled into my, I'm getting to constantly by customers, by internal, I'm just, the days are long. And I have to really differentiate what needs to be done now and what can wait. And again, that was a skill set that I didn't really have before because I had never really been challenged to have it. So I think I would have, I think generally I would have liked to have known you're not as good as you think you are, but I learned that pretty quick.
Zach, well, linked to that, there's a great question from Kate asking, hello from San Francisco. Hello to you. We're jealous you're in San Francisco. What is the average time per week full-time students dedicate to the Accelerate Leadership Center? And I think, Kate, to Zach's point, you have to kind of figure out for yourself what's required. And what we like to do is we can kind of scale a nut based on how busy you are. So you could have a coaching appointment, which is 1 hour once a week if you wanted to. We offer at least probably 2 or 4 hours of workshop opportunity every single week. So you could do that. But what we find is most students sort of maybe see us once or twice a mini. So we keep talking about minis. You probably heard we run on 6 weeks, sort of some little mini semesters. And so what we see is students will sort of front load us. They'll do the assessment before they'll come in for a debrief. And then a student to me who's optimally using our center will probably come in every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks for a 1 hour coaching session. Because if you think you're coming in more than that, it's too much. You want to meet with your coach, decide what you're going to go and work on those behaviors, come back and check in with your coach. And so if you do too often, you haven't got enough time to practice. So you would be seeing your coach in that way. And then where you have time, you would join us for workshops that we're offering. What we do find though, it flexes. Some students like Zach get in and go, I can't deal with what first year is. I've got my requirements out the way and I'm not going to see you until my second year. Then in my second year, I'm going to fully immerse. Other students don't want to see us, but then they start losing confidence because they're not getting internship opportunities or they're not getting jobs they want. So then they'll come work with us on issues of confidence and motivation and presenting themselves in a specific way. So then we'll see them intensely for that period. Other students think they don't learn, they're not rock stars as fast as Zach did. Zach did it in 2 or 3 days. Many of our students do really well, but during their internship, they can struggle and then they can suddenly go, wow, I'm not doing well. This is not what I expected. This is not the fit I hoped for. And so we'll often see students start seeing us quite assertively in the summer of their internship. We're available year round where they'll start going, I need to make sense of this. Or when they come back, and to Zach's point, a lot of students will go, oh, I definitely want to be a consultant. And then they come back from their consulting internship and they're like, oh, it's not what I want to do at all. And then we work with them around helping them sort through like value sorting exercises, what's important, what's a good fit, what is their aspiration. So I suppose I'm giving you a real academic answer. It depends, but it really does. You decide how much you use us, the requirements. You can easily get the requirements of working with us done within your 2 or 3 year period if you're a part-time student. So I hope that answers that. Zach, was there any other question that you wanted to tackle next?
I just want to build on that one a little bit. Just, it's like anything else in life. There's going to be a spectrum, right? There's going to be the people that go through, they don't believe it's as fundamental or as important to them, and they just sort of say, I got to check the box and move on, right? Yeah. Then they're going to be people like me that basically have a cot in the corner of the room at the Accelerate Leadership Center. And then there's everybody in between. Yeah. The one thing I'll say, one of the women on my team, she is one of our technical teammates. She helps with data visualization and whenever we're trying to sell some of our solutions to customers. She's at a point in her career where she feels like she's like as far as she can go with the skills and the knowledge she has. Yeah. She has asked me actually about does she get a leadership coach? Like, she's been working for 30 years and she wants to become a VP or in the C-suite of probably a smaller to mid-sized company and leave Microsoft. She doesn't know how to do it. And she is now prepared to pay a significant sum of money for one-on-one coaching sessions. I cannot stress to you enough that how awesome it is to have that opportunity to get this included as part of your tuition. Yeah, you're paying Tepper a lot of money. I cannot stress to you enough the value you're getting out of it. I don't know if any of you have heard of Brene Brown, but this is the frame of reference of how important emotional intelligence and leadership are in corporate America and in my experiences, again, just at Microsoft. Number one, everybody, regardless of role, I'm not a manager. I don't manage people, but I'm referred to as a leader. Everyone, leadership is not a title. Leadership is a set of behaviors, first of all. And secondly, Brene Brown, she does a lot of work around leadership and behavior and social and emotional intelligence. She has a book called Dare to Lead. in Microsoft US, they pulled every Microsoft US sales employee. So like thousands of people for 7 weeks, they pulled us for an hour a week to sit down within our teams of about, let's say 20 to 30 people and talk about these traits and these skill sets. Like we are supposed to be out selling to customers, generating revenue. And they said, it's more important for this hour a week, on top of the hour that we spent reading and actually thinking about the content, that you learn how to become more effective leaders, not just for Microsoft, but for customers, for society. So like, if that doesn't, like one of the largest, most recognized companies in the world, if that doesn't tell you how important leadership, communication, social, emotional intelligence are, I don't know what will.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Zach. And I think there are two questions here that are linked to what you're talking about. One's from Muna and one's from Ken Huang. And Ken's saying, how have we had to adjust our coaching styles, techniques for the Zoom world? And I think, Ken, what I've loved is I often feel like Zoom can feel pretty intimate. Like if you think you coaching, it's just you and the person together. So I find it's just as effective. And I think for our students, our part-time students have loved it because they can access us after work at night and check in or during the day. And especially for our part-time students, Friday is always a complicated day. We offer extra programs on campus. And now if they had a gap in their workspace, they could just join in programs. So that's from a workshop perspective, but from a coaching perspective, I feel like we didn't skip a beat. It remains as intimate and just as private. So that was great. And linked to that, Muna was asking the question about, trying to engage her organization to think differently, especially during a pandemic, about how they develop early career people. And Muna, I can't tell you what the most exciting thing for me as a center was all the new programming we developed because of the pandemic. So we have lots of workshops on how to express empathy online, how to build engagement with your team online, how to sort of exude presence online. And so you will explore lots, if that's of interest, there are lots of workshop programmings that we offer that helps you really think. We don't think this mode is going anywhere. It's like, how do you be successful as a leader, largely through online contact? So there certainly will be skills in that realm. So thank you very much for those questions.
Leanne,
Zach,
I'd like to tackle a couple of these. I mean, I think, there's one from Sharma saying, how do we in general life tackle long-term beliefs, personality traits? And then Anoop, I think it's connected to your question of how do you evaluate what kind of leadership style is lacking or needed. For me, it's two things. There's a backwards looking component and a forwards looking one, right? The backwards looking one is going to be reflection. It's self-reflection and awareness of these are my strengths. Like, this is what I'm really great at generating energy. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm very passionate. Like, that is what I know I'm good at. Now, on the flip side of that, that's really intimidating sometimes for people. Like, sometimes when I'm genuinely curious and wanting to learn more and hear from people, it feels like an interrogation. And the last thing I would ever want to do is isolate somebody or make them feel, what I'm saying? So like, it took a lot of experiences of me sort of, still honestly to this day, I reflect back on social experiences, professional experiences, and I'm constantly thinking to myself, running it back in my head, how did that go? Like, what would I have done differently? If I was on the other side of that call or of that table or of that dinner table, like, how would I have interpreted that, or where could I have made that person felt more included? Or so like, I think that's the backwards looking, self-reflection, self-awareness, and it's really uncomfortable. Like, it's really, really uncomfortable to challenge yourself to think about how you can be more effective. And this is the second part, the vision of who you want to be. How can you be more effective as a leader, as a colleague, as an employee? And not just that, but like, these skills, they have bled into my personal life, like to a degree that I can't even describe to you. I've had some family members and some friends that go through stuff, and just kind of reminding myself that, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to be remembered as the guy who kind of was always the first one to talk, or the guy who was always in your face, or always had to be the guy. I want to be remembered for like the person who, even if he did have power, didn't act like he did. Like I want to be the person that brought people together. Like I wanted to exhibit skill sets that I admired in the people around me. So I think, you know, it requires that self-reflection. It requires a degree of application so that you can get to that vision that you have for yourself.
Great, thanks, Zach. Thank you. And then just a last question, because I know we want to make sure we finish in time. Austin was asking about, do we charge for alumni coaching afterwards? And we don't, Austin, but I can't promise that is forever. I think my dean would get a bit nervous if I'm promising forever, but at the moment we do not. And as you're saying, what's great, the MCC, you have 3, we're trying to dedicate coaches for the alumni group, but what we're finding with our center, if you've worked with us for 2 years or 3 years, you become unbelievably connected to your coach. So you tend to reach back. Like Zach was saying, he still has contact with so many people in our center. And so we don't charge. And Julie, as part of the MCC, is a remarkable coach that is available to you as well. So for now, there's no charge. And we have a lot of resources, and you have great, you become very connected to your coach. So I don't see any open questions. So John, thank you. You're administering Q&A so fast. I'm like, oh, have we got them? I'm sure you as participants all thank me and thanking Zach for being here, for being committed. It's over and above, and it's so exciting. Yeah, I think we'll give him a round of applause, John. Just exciting. We're proud of seeing our students grow and model the behaviors that we think are so important. And Udit, it's exactly, yeah, it's the example that Zach is. So we thank you very much, Zach. And we thank all of you for participating. Please, you know how to find us on the website and through John. We're happy to answer any questions. We are very excited to be meeting you all. So thank you to everyone, and thank you, John, and thank you, Zach. Oh yes, Zach.
I would just like to make my closing statement here. I see
Closing statements.
Real quick, last question, Ken. You know, additional advice you have for incoming MBA students.
Yeah.
Know why you're getting your MBA. Do some soul searching and get some experience. You know, like do some serious soul searching and come into it and have it be your experience. Like every one of your classmates is going to have a different one. You're paying a lot of money. You're taking a lot of time. You make it your experience. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is that whether it's Tepper, I hope it's Tepper, right? I hope it is. If it's Tepper, if it's another MBA program, if it's not an MBA program, if it's life in general, don't say I don't have the time. We have the same amount of time as our favorite celebrities and our favorite athletes and our favorite business leaders and everybody else. If you find yourself at Tepper or one of these MBA programs or not anywhere else where you have the opportunity for this leadership coaching, communication coaching, please, please, please prioritize it. Like, please prioritize it. I can't stress to you enough. At least try it. If you try it and you have bad experience and it's not for you, that's okay. But at least you tried it. It's don't say I don't have the time. You have the time, so make the time, and it will be very rewarding.
Well, thank you. With that note, we will all rush out and be motivated. Zach, thank you so much. John, thank you. We look forward to staying in touch. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you all so much.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.